In a 10, Tails doll. The Tails doll is the main antagonist of various creepypasta stories of the same name, so Tails doll, as well as the urban legend of the same name, which originally I think was like a meme or something like that. It's basically a demonic doll designed in the form of Miles Tails Prower from the Sonic series who seeks to defeat Miles. However, in the creepypasta stories, he seems to be nothing more than a homicidal maniac who seeks to kill anyone who performs the Tails doll curse. I don't know how you can perform a curse, but okay. There's no definitive history to the Tails doll creepypastas, but the most popular one is the Tails doll curse created by Rebecca G. A man came home from work with a gift for his son. He had picked up a new video game called Sonic R. It was a racing game, and he gave it to his son as a gift. He was so excited to play it, so he got to it right away. That night though, he played the game with his son, and they had a great time. A couple of days later, they were almost actually completely finished the game, but the dad told his son that it was time for bed. At around 2 a.m. he woke up and heard thumps on the door. He assumed that it was his son getting up to ask him for something because, you know, that's what little kids do, and he told the boy to go back to sleep. However, the thumping kept happening, and Tails kept popping into his head. He got out of bed and slowly opened the door, and then he heard someone say very softly, "You're coming with me forever," and it was a doll. An evil, blood-covered, possessed little doll of Tails. And honestly, after Plush Trap and the Plush Babies and honestly anything else, can you really blame me for thinking that this would fit into the FNAF series? No, you can't. In the 9, Slenderman. I think at this point we all know who Slenderman is, okay? But I also wanted to point out that 5 out of 6 words that started this number had T's in them. Anyway, if you're somehow unaware, Slenderman is a tall, faceless entity wearing a suit. He's one of, if not the most popular creepypasta character in existence, and first appeared on the Something Awful forum. The Slenderman is a supernatural creature with nebulously defined characteristics and abilities. He generally appears as a tall humanoid creature in a black or gray suit with a red or black tie and obviously a white shirt. His face is totally white and blank, like just nothing. He's also normally between 6 and 10 feet tall, which is a pretty big gap, but oh well. He would originally stalk his targets, impale them on trees, and then remove their organs, but in comparison, the contemporary depictions have turned him into a more passive-aggressive creature, more likely to let his prey slowly devolve into madness until they're unable to cope with their situation, while often watching from afar as this takes place, which sounds exactly like a kind of animatronic that would be in the FNAF series. It's like the puppet, but who wants to mentally torment you instead of tear you limb from limb. So basically how I've seen this series. In at 8, Eyeless Jack. Eyeless Jack really feels very FNAF-y in his original story. The original creepypasta follows a man named Mitch who moves in with his brother Edwin after his house is foreclosed. A week later, Mitch wakes up with a large gash on his cheek, and after going to the hospital, the doctor reveals that Mitch's left kidney had been surgically removed overnight. Somehow. Around midnight that night, Mitch wakes to see Eyeless Jack standing over his bed. Mitch manages to grab his camera and take a picture before Jack attacks, clawing at his chest, but Mitch manages to escape and flees into the woods, where he trips and is knocked unconscious. Eyeless Jack is described in the original story as a person without eyes, obviously, wearing a black hoodie and an expressionless blue mask with no features, and black slime, supposedly blood, dripping from the eye sockets behind the mask. But is it just me, or does this give off seemingly Stitch Wraith vibes? Obviously yes, this came out before the Stitch Wraith, but could this creepypasta be what gave Scott the inspiration for this character? Because aside from the whole being a remnant-infused experiment, the two are pretty similar, or at least they are in feel and demeanor, I think.
Number 7, Gengar. Gengar is the final evolution of Ghastly, evolving from Haunter. Gengar seems like a perfect fit for the FNAF verse in my mind because it looks so cuddly but is also known for being deadly. It is a dual ghost and poison type Pokemon who is known for being mischievous and for devouring the dreams of those it preys on. Generally, Gengar only comes out at night, which also seems to fit pretty well considering the main stories that we play through generally take place at night in FNAF. I think Gengar is the perfect combination of one who seems like it could be fun and friendly, but is actually much more sinister than it looks, much like the animatronics featured in FNAF.
And it ain't Nina the Killer. Okay, yes, this is a fan addition to like the Jeff the Killer creepypasta world, but in the art that I've seen for this character, there is a lot of purple surrounding this killer, which honestly not only makes her feel like Afton, but also like Vanny because they're female. Nina Hopkins started off as a normal, air quotes, fangirl of Jeff. Nina would adore the creepypasta character and basically every quality about him and continue to read the story over and over. Her 6-year-old brother Chris wouldn't really mind the obsession and would look up to his sister. However, after attending their new school, a few bullies began to harass the two. When the first incident of like the bullying actually led to Nina almost killing her bullies, she began to explore her more violent nature, finding a link with her behavior and her idol, Jeff. And you know what? The fact that she has a little brother named Chris and everyone thought that Crying Child was named Chris only makes this worse. This is basically just a possible William Afton fangirl origin story, and if you don't think so, I don't know what is. Cause like, come on, this is one of the most terrifying concepts in my brain. I don't understand people who fall in love with serial killers, but even still, the idea that someone could be so obsessed that it turns them into their idol, that killer, yeah, that's not gonna cause me any problems when trying to get to sleep tonight at all, or every other night after. No, why would it do that? Halfway through into number 5, SCP-309. SCP-309 is a small plush stuffed animal that looks as if it has been turned completely inside out. Gold-orange fur is present along the seams, while a small amount of cotton stuffing and 2 protruding eyes are visible on its head. The interior of SCP-309 is understuffed with cotton, giving it a flexible and cuddly feel. SCP-309 has no effect on inanimate objects, however contact with living subjects is both dangerous and sometimes life-threatening. Humans and animals lightly brushing against SCP-309 with a finger or a similarly small portion of the body display severe, non-localized discomfort for tens of minutes afterwards. Humans also report feeling extreme nausea despite the fact that 309 does not induce vomiting. If SCP-309 is pressed firmly against the subject or the subject quickly picks up SCP-309 and attempts to hold it, the subject will be violently and painfully turned inside out within 10 seconds. Which I feel like at this point is pretty par for the course in FNAF's world, okay? Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. FNAF's world. This could just be a way for William to get out of the goddamn Springtrap suit, honestly. That's what I would use it for. And for the puppeteer. Considering how there is literally an animatronic called the Puppet with a couple of variations on said puppet animatronic, Nightmare On and Lefty, having a FNAF character that was a puppeteer would make so much sense. Honestly, it might make too much sense for the FNAF series if I'm being frank, okay? And I'm not usually frank. Most of the time, I'm Connor. The puppeteer is a vengeful spirit who feeds on loneliness and depression, which is why I found it fast. He targets the emotionally fragile, using them for his own gain and power. He'll stalk a victim for a certain period of time, slowly twisting them into believing that there is no way from escaping life's torment other than death. Although the puppeteer works alone, he has 2 unwilling proxies, Zachary and Emra, who actually are used in special occasions for when he needs a quick snack. They will seclude the victim in different ways, making the hunt much easier for the actual puppeteer. So yeah, I mean, from the term vengeful spirit to working alone and escaping torment, this is very much in the realm of FNAF possibilities. Like, I don't know really if they would be a good or a bad guy though. Like, I don't know. FNAF doesn't really seem to have any proper good guys, especially based on previous lists, but I don't know. Let me know what you think they would be in the comments. Would they be good or would they be bad? Would they be helping William or would they be against him? Although no one's really against William, at least in the right way.
Number 3, Haunter. I don't usually highlight Haunter as much when I'm talking scary Pokemon, even if I'm talking about ghost Pokemon. And recognizing how left out this Pokemon might feel, I decided I should include it on this list, where it's actually a completely perfect fit based on its modus operandi. It would fit perfectly in FNAF 3, where we are plagued by the real-life animatronic of Springtrap, as well as non-physical hallucinations and ghosts. Haunter itself is non-corporeal, meaning that it has no physical and solid body, but is instead an immaterial ghost and poison type Pokemon, which can drift through walls. Ooh, spooky. Haunter is also known for trying to spook its victims. It generally lurks in the dark, urging those who pass to come nearer before unleashing its toxic tongue on them. Just saying, I can already see the jump scare in my mind. A lick from Haunter will ultimately result in seizures followed by death. Seems like it would fit really well in FNAF. It has a jump scare and then you die. just saying.
But ultimately, in at number 2, Herobrine. The reason I have Herobrine on this list is, yes, for the tags in the algorithm and SEO, but also because in all honesty, Herobrine is just kind of the one you should not have killed, but a Minecraft creepypasta. In the original creepypasta, Herobrine is basically Notch's dead brother who ends up possessing the original game. Quote from the original story: "I would constantly think I saw the other player in the fog, but never when I looked in that direction. I saved the map and went on the forums to see if anyone else had found the mysterious player, and I received a PM from username Herobrine containing one word: stop. About a month passed until I heard from someone again. It was revealed to be the brother of Notch, the game's developer. I personally emailed Notch and asked him if he had a brother, and his only response was I did, but he's no longer with us." And while that doesn't necessarily confirm it as it being a possession thing, I feel like it's definitely implied. You don't just have a character running around your game that has the username of a dead brother without it being a possession or a ghost thing, okay? And considering how the one you should not have killed is possessing Afton, I think that the parallel kinda makes sense. And if not, we need it for the SEO, so deal with it, okay? You can't change the list now, I already did it. And finally, in at number 1, Cassiel the Demon Toddler. Speaking of the one you should not have killed, seeing the name Cassiel the Demon Toddler instantly made me think of the one you should not have killed. No matter who you think the identity of the spirit possessing Afton is, there's still a toddler. And if you think that it's Cassidy, Cassiel is like the supernatural fan version of Cassidy's name. According to the creepypasta, or I guess technically it's a happy pasta, Cassiel is a 2-year-old demon that was abandoned in the woods by her parents and then subsequently found and adopted by Slenderman and taken to the Slender Mansion to live with him and the other creeps. What? When Slenderman first found Cassie, he was really only interested in using her as a weapon, and he even considers eating her when she'd rather watch Care Bears than actually train. So while yes, it isn't exactly the same, I think that the whole like adopted demon daughter of Slenderman thing would definitely make sense as a character in FNAF, or I guess since the title says animatronic, it wouldn't really make sense, or maybe it would make sense if they possessed an animatronic. I kind of ignored the whole animatronic thing for this list. And at 10, SCP-191. SCP-191, also known as the Cyborg Child, is a female human child of unknown age. Well, to us anyway. The Foundation knows, but they haven't redacted. It is believed to have been the test subject of several experimental surgeries performed by a now deceased doctor of unknown name. 80% of the left half of her face and skull have been removed, with the eye and ear replaced by a complex transceiver system that allows it to receive and transmit not only visual and auditory input, but a wider spectrum of electromagnetic radiation ranging from a low-frequency radio to high-energy gamma rays. The lower jaw, teeth, and larynx have been removed as well. The esophagus has been rerouted to an artificial orifice in the back of the neck, which is a feeding tube, and the trachea rerouted directly to an air filtration device. This seems like something that Afton would do in order to keep his family alive or to bring them back from death. Like, this is what's hiding in William's basement, and Crying Child is the Cyborg Child this time around. And at 9, SCP-699. SCP-699 is a clear rectangular case 2.5 meters by 1.5 meters by 1 meter in size. Engraved on the side is the SCP Foundation Keter symbol and SCP-17591. The artifact appears to be made of plexiglass, but it is in fact a super dense polymer much stronger and heavier than any material currently manufactured. The weight of the object is estimated at around 24,000 kilograms. SCP-699 shows no seams in its construction and no obvious means of opening it. It has resisted all attempts to open, damage, or acquire a sample of the material and it is composed of. Attempts to acquire a small sample of the material so that it can be reproduced, though, are still ongoing. Does this sound familiar at all? A strange box that we can't open? Well, how about this? Quote, "The contents of SCP-699 are under investigation and currently in dispute amongst researchers." Oh yeah, baby, that's right, the FNAF 4 box! However, the contents of SCP-699 are apparently telepathic and appear different to most observers, depending on their desires and psychological state. So maybe that's what's going on with the FNAF 4 box as well. Perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now. And at 8, SCP-838. SCP-838 is a collective term for a series of job ads appearing in newspapers that print in the vicinity of Chicago, and whatever agency is behind them. The job offered varies between instances and has included positions in accounting, management, and janitorial work, among others. These ads are entirely mundane unless responded to. Attempts to trace these classifieds have also proven unsuccessful. The next time a person who has responded to SCP-838 falls asleep, he or she immediately enters REM sleep. The affected individual will reports experiencing extremely vivid dreams of having a job interview for the advertised job in a large windowless office building. Anyone hired by Pellis Inc., which is the company behind this, is to be considered part of SCP-838-1. Those not offered jobs are unaffected. When members of SCP-838-1 sleep during the week, they report vivid dreams of working in what is believed to be the same building that the interview took place in. In these dreams, the workforce of Pellis seems to consist entirely of people who have responded to these ads. Could this perhaps explain why we keep going back to this same job where we almost die over and over again, and why our alarm is a grandfather clock, and why we only stay until 6 AM? Could this be a real dream brought on by SCP-838? I don't know. Sounds like Dream Theory level 2. And it's 7, Smile Dog. According to the story, Smile Dog, also known as Smile.jpg, is a haunted image dating back to the beginnings of the internet. Smile.jpg has a reputation for driving those who view it insane. All of the victims who have spoken up about their experiences have also said that they are visited by the dog-like creature in the image named Smile Dog. And when in these dreams, the only thing the victims can do is watch and listen as Smile Dog tells them that the only way to end their torment is to spread the word. And while yes, this is just an image that causes you to see a dog in your dreams, there is another dog that relates to the FNAF series that I could not help but draw a parallel to. Sparky. In the early days of FNAF 1, someone began to spread rumors about a hidden 6th animatronic named Sparky the dog. And sure enough, screenshots began to pop up on Tumblr, actually showing the animatronic. Reportedly, Sparky the one-armed dog was a non-violent animatronic that would never attack the player, only appearing occasionally in the backstage doorway. However, it was revealed to be a hoax. But I mean, like, come on. Dogs appearing in images, driving people crazy for different reasons. One because it's haunted and the other because we don't know if it was real. Yeah, that counts for this list because I need it to. Oh, I don't have enough energy. And it's 6, SCP-423. SCP-423 has no physical form. It appears to exist entirely within textual narratives. It was discovered in a used bookstore in Texas in a copy of Tom Sawyer. The book seemed perfectly normal except for the inclusion of a character named Fred, who was not known to exist in any other version of the story. However, it was not until it was left by a copy of Moby Dick that the anomalous structure of SCP-423 became clear. 423 is able to enter textual narratives, inserting themselves as a minor character. The details of the character vary from story to story, but it is always a character named Fred, or something similar, and its role in the story is usually minor. Physical descriptions of the character are rare, but it usually appears as a human male of average height and middle years. However, this can change depending on the nature of the narrative. But Fred has been a character in FNAF forever, so I mean, this doesn't really mean much. So this could honestly just be a fun way of introducing a new character. Or instead, this could be a riff on Jeremy. So that's why there are multiple characters named Jeremy in the series so far. One of them is this Fred guy, but I don't know, it's just a thought.
Number 5, Bisharp. Something about the fact that Bisharp already looks like a razor-clad automaton makes me feel pretty uneasy about this Pokemon. Bisharp has blades for feet and arms and blades in its torso. It's a combo dark and steel type Pokemon. I don't know about you, but other than ghost Pokemon, I don't think there are two better types, especially when blended together, that seem to encompass the feel of the FNAF universe. Like if animatronics were Pokemon, they'd probably be dark and steel types too. You know what I mean?
And at 4, SCP-1048. SCP-1048 is a small teddy bear, approximately 33 centimeters in height. Through testing, composition of the subject revealed no unusual qualities that make it discernible from a non-sentient teddy bear. Subject is capable of moving on its own accord and can communicate through a small range of gestures. The subject regularly shows affection to individuals in ways found endearing by most people. Affection is usually given in the form of a hug to the lower leg, but subject has also been observed dancing, jumping in place, and in 2 separate events, it has even drawn childlike pictures for janitorial staff. All Foundation personnel that have interacted with the subject have responded positively to its affection, even D-Class personnel with normally psychopathic tendencies. However, SCP-1048-A is where things wander into FNAF territory. Since 1048-A is a small teddy bear of similar size and shape to 1048, however, this A variant is made completely out of human ears and will go around causing anyone that comes within a 10-meter radius to grow ear-like appendages, extremities, whatever, all over their body. Joy. Do I really need to explain why this should be in FNAF? Maybe William could finally get some flesh on his bones again. literally. Getting close to the end in number 3, Jason the Toy Maker. Okay, when I heard the name Jason the Toy Maker, it instantly made me think of William Afton, because in essence, William is the toy maker of FNAF's world. Plus, the image on the wiki that I was seeing at least had a lot of purple on this character, and again, purple, synonymous with evil apparently. And even the character description sounds like Afton, alright? Jason the Toy Maker is a creature with human features who loves building and inventing toys. He looks and acts like the perfect friend, but in reality, he's a selfish, lying, possessive control freak bastard who will kill anyone he perceives as standing in the way of his goal. I added the bastard thing, but I mean, does that not just perfectly describe what we seem to know about William Afton in the series, like almost to a T? But remember the whole I will put you back together thing? Well, Jason the Toy Maker's goal is to convince the Chosen, to his current target, not Spencer Agnew, to make a promise to play with him for all of eternity. It doesn't matter to what extent the Chosen keeps this promise, because for Jason, the attention will never be enough. He can't stand it when the center of attention moves away from him, and he hates it when the Chosen proves to be ungrateful. This kind of sounds like my dad. But when he understands that the Chosen can't keep his promise and wants to go away, he will turn them into a wax doll so that they don't abandon him. So yeah, Afton. I could see it. Penultimately, in number 2, SCP-017. SCP-017, aka The Shadow, is a humanoid figure approximately 80 centimeters in height, anatomically similar to a child, but with no discernible identifying features. SCP-017 seems to be composed of a shadowy, smoke-like shroud. No attempt to find any object beneath the shroud has been successful, but the possibility has not been ruled out. SCP-017's reaction to shadows cast upon it is immediate and swift, as SCP-017 leaps at the object casting the shadow and completely encloses it in its shroud, whereupon it returns to its normal size, leaving no trace of the object it attacked behind. And this is the kind of thing that I honestly expect the ghosts to do in the FNAF universe. Like, if we really think about how the ghosts of the original 5 victims would act, I think it would be similar to this. I mean, this is kind of how they attacked Afton, right? Especially if the shadow looks like a small child. It would also fit into the universe in that sense. However, there would also have to be like 5 instances of it, but that's fine. It makes sense to me. And finally, in at number 1, SCP-173. SCP-173, aka Peanut, is probably the most famous SCP out there. It is constructed from concrete and rebar with traces of Krylon brand spray paint. SCP-173 is animate and extremely hostile despite looking like a statue. The object, though, cannot move while within a direct line of sight. Line of sight must not be broken at any time with SCP-173. SCP assigned to enter their container are instructed to alert one another before blinking, because there must be at least 2 individuals. Object is reported to attack by snapping the neck at the base of the skull or by strangulation. Personnel report sounds of scraping stone originating from within the container when no one is present inside. This is exactly how Foxy acts in FNAF 1 if you think about it. You have to keep checking in on him to make sure that he doesn't come sprinting at you to break your neck or whatever, however the animatronics kill you. Sure, with Foxy you don't need to have eyes on at all times, but Peanut would basically fit in perfectly in the FNAF world, and he's honestly the reason I came up with and started this list to begin with, so yeah. Do it.
Number 10, Snorlax. Snorlax might not seem like a scary Pokemon. In fact, they are not creepy by their own nature, but if put into the FNAF world, this is a Pokemon that could be made instantly scary. I'm just imagining Snorlax as a big, lumbering, and imposing figure, as Snorlax kind of has that perfect large size and presence similar to the animatronics. For some reason, I can just imagine Snorlax fitting in with the other mascots and consuming not just one person whose soul would remain trapped inside it, but multiple. Just think of how big Snorlax is and how much it can eat. It's basically the Pokemon version of a giant bear. Of course, at least after it had sated its hunger, it would probably be pretty easy to escape, as it would likely get pretty sleepy, but before then, it would be a terrifying beast to battle in the FNAF-verse. Number 9, Mimikyu. Mimikyu is a fitting type of Pokemon for FNAF, being that it is a ghost type, one of the scariest types. Also, Mimikyu likes to hide its appearance already in a kind of suit. Okay, not really like an animatronic suit, more like a rag, but still, there are some parallels here. We don't actually know what the original Mimikyu looks like under the rag because it always keeps itself hidden, its eyes peering out through its disguise at us, kind of like the souls or like the true murderous intentions perhaps living within the animatronics. Of course, I don't think Mimikyu is as sinister with its intentions as a FNAF animatronic is, but if it were considered one of the team in the FNAF-verse working alongside Foxy, Chica, Bonnie, and Freddy, then mayhaps that would change. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are enjoying this list and you want more crossover lists like it, let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Alakazam. For some reason, when it comes to Alakazam, I can imagine a whole attraction at Freddy's featuring this Pokemon. Stay with me here. Something we haven't seen yet is some kind of fortune-telling animatronic, despite the fact that fortune-telling animatronics can be a staple at fairs and various entertainment venues. Whenever I see one of these, I'm always myself inclined to ask a question, enter some coins, and get my fortune told by a robo-fortune teller. Alakazam could fit this mold perfectly, and while Alakazam maybe isn't that scary to look at, psychic types are always pretty frightening to fight against. Also, I feel like Alakazam was one of the Pokemon that I was most afraid of when I was a kid.
In at 7, SCP-978. SCP-978 appears to be a standard red and black Polaroid Supercolor 645 CL instant camera, with no distinctive identifying marks or damage. SCP-978 operates the same as a standard camera and shows no anomalous behavior beyond the photographs it produces. When a subject is pictured with SCP-978 though, the photograph that develops shows not what the subject was doing at the time of the photo, but rather what the subject wanted to be doing, unless what they wanted to be doing was what they were doing. Now, unlike 838, I don't think that this would really help explain anything, but the sheer amount of power an object like this would have to someone like William Afton is horrifying. Like, oh, let's take a picture of you and Bonnie. Click, finds out what they really want to be doing. Oh hey, I have the exact thing that you want to be doing in the back room, come follow me. Or hell, even like just us as the player, we can find out what Afton really frickin' wants for once. And maybe we can finally get some goddamn answers. Especially since this works on animals too, so maybe it can work on like spirits? I don't know, the Foundation hasn't tested that yet. They tested it on rabbits. Apparently all they want to do is bang. I'm not kidding, there's actually like a log that talks about them taking a picture of a rabbit, and it was just them mating with another rabbit.
Number 6, Blastoise. Blastoise is another Pokemon that by itself is not really that frightening, but in the world of FNAF would be a terrifying one to face off against. Just look up pictures of a robot version of Blastoise, because there's art for that, and you will see what I'm talking about. This Pokemon is by far one of the most terrifying in this reimagined form. Either way you look at it, robot or organic, Blastoise is just a Pokemon that means business, coming ready to fight and armed with its cannons, which launch water at its opponents. Its Hydro Blasts are powerful enough to break through concrete or steel, so I want to imagine what they might do to a security guard working the night shift at Freddy's. I feel like you'd be pretty messed up with those water cannons.
Halfway through into number 5, Willy's Wonderland. While not being a creepypasta, this kind of thing, I had to include it on this list. I mean, come on. This movie is starring Nicolas Cage, and it was definitely meant to be a FNAF movie before the actual FNAF movie could come out. Quote, a quiet drifter is tricked into a janitorial job at the now condemned Willy's Wonderland. The mundane task suddenly becomes an all-out fight for survival against wave after wave of demonic animatronics. Fists fly, kicks land, titans crash, and only one will make it out alive. That's the official plot for this movie. This is basically just like the plot to a FNAF fan game in movie form. I even thought that the movie was called Wally's World, which was either the location from a FNAF fan game, or it just goes to show how memorable this movie is in comparison to FNAF. So like, this would honestly, it would be hilarious if Willy's Wonderland characters ended up in a FNAF game at some point, but like, come on. Maybe this was like the movie that Scott's in-universe counterpart ended up making because of his games, just like how Scott gets a FNAF movie in our world, maybe in universe he gets this movie. I don't know, I think that'd be hilarious if that's the case. And considering how FNAF is kind of leaking into our world now, that wouldn't be too far of a stretch.
Number 4, Mega Beedrill. Bzzz. I know that Beedrill is an insect Pokemon, but we don't really have any insect animatronics, which is actually why I'd kind of like to see this one in the FNAF universe. I just think insects, especially ones with stingers, can be pretty creepy and dangerous and scary, and animatronics with their ability to jump scare and crush you are also pretty horrific, like insects, but different. So these seem like two worlds that could collide well. Mega Beedrill is the Mega Evolved version of Beedrill and basically just looks more frightening with more pointed drills and no spindly insect legs. It also just looks like an angrier version of Beedrill. Mega Beedrill, while not at the height of some of the animatronics, is also bigger than the regular Beedrill counterpart. I feel like a giant flying bee or wasp looking animatronic with drills for arms sounds pretty terrifying.
Get it close to the end in number 3, SCP-053. SCP-053, aka the young girl, appears to be a small 3-year-old girl. She is capable of basic speech and appears to be slightly above average in mental development. She has a generally pleasant personality and rarely seems upset, becoming agitated only in the presence of groups of people. Any and all humans over the age of 3 who make eye contact, physically touch, or remain around SCP-053 for longer than 10 minutes will rapidly become irrational, paranoid, and homicidal. Most, if not all of these feelings will be directed at 053, and afflicted subjects will attempt to kill 053 after first killing or driving off all humans visible to them. Those attempting to kill 053 will suffer massive heart attacks or seizures and die seconds after doing any physical damage to SCP-053. The SCP will also regenerate almost instantaneously from any wound, regardless of severity. So yeah, if her being 3 years old wasn't enough to be in FNAF, since apparently that's like the ideal age for a victim, like Charlotte was, which now that I think about it, this could just be Charlie, but she also causes anyone around her for prolonged periods of time to want to mass murder. So yeah, that's FNAF material if you ask me.
Number 2, Genesect. Genesect is a modified fossil type made into basically a robot. It's a steel and fossil type Pokemon in its current incarnation. Genesect was resurrected from a fossil but was technologically improved upon by Team Plasma. And in its original form as a fossil type, Genesect has a history of being known for being a hunter. What more do you need to know here? An instinctive hunter Pokemon who was originally something more organic and is now more machine than anything else. This seems to fit all too well with the world of FNAF. Not only would Genesect fit in, they would also likely be just as, if not more, terrifying than some of the original animatronics. I don't think I want to live in a world where Pokemon are inherently murderous as opposed to being inherently wild or friendly. Sounds scary. Number 1, Drifloon. Does it get any more thematic than this? Drifloon is literally a Pokemon known for stealing away children who see it as a regular balloon. It's like if Balloon Boy had a balloon that was just as deadly as any of the other animatronics at Freddy's Pizza. In fact, that is probably who I would partner Drifloon up with, were it to be included in the FNAF verse. It would make the perfect companion or sidekick to Balloon Boy. In fact, Drifloon is so spooky, it might actually end up becoming sort of the main antagonist between that duo. And of course, in case you were wondering, Drifloon is itself a ghost and flying type Pokemon, who of course happens to look like a balloon.
First, we have to discuss what the story of Poppy Playtime is, and if it can relate to anything currently in the FNAF world. What we know about the company that seems to be the main antagonist of Poppy Playtime series, called Playtime Co., is also basically the story of the game. They seemingly hit it big in the 1960s with the release of Poppy, the world's first truly intelligent toy. This Poppy doll put them on the map, marking them as the king of toys until dolls fell out of style in the late 70s, causing Playtime Co. to have to update their repertoire and come out with newer toys like Huggy Wuggy and Candy Cat, among others. This helped them bring back some of the business they lost, but this didn't seem to be enough. They soon began seemingly experimenting with more realistic dolls in an attempt to recreate Poppy's success, because let's face it, even if there was a truly intelligent version of Poppy, not every version of Poppy would be like that. Only the one they used in commercials and later we release at the end of that chapter, just like how ice cream in commercials is really mashed potatoes. Yeah, sorry. Sentient toys, however, are nothing new to FNAF, so William wouldn't really feel like a stranger character. Of course, we also have to decide what version of William comes over. If it was William, Springtrap, Scrap Trap, Burn Trap, Glitch Trap, or maybe even Dave Miller, William's alias while he was on the run and underground in the Silver Eyes novel. Because the Springtrap personality or persona is very different to the William Afton persona. Springtrap is a very aggressive personality compared to William, who is sneaky and calculated as opposed to Springtrap's direct approach. So assuming that since this story revolves around people more than the toys, who are definitely instrumental but not as important like they would be in FNAF, in this case we would be going with William Afton specifically, because he needs to be able to sneak around and do villainous things, whereas Springtrap would likely just end up being a toy. Well, actually, like, if we think about it, maybe we can work two versions into this series. So, if Afton was in Poppy Playtime, he would probably just end up being a higher up at the company. Just because he doesn't seem like a man who sees living doll or truly intelligent doll and then doesn't do anything about it. Okay, look, if Afton's coming over, his story has to come over as well. It can't be just some random dude who's named William Afton. So he would have to have the story of wanting to bring his kids back. So, after hearing this, he would start at the company and eventually work his way up. By the time the actual game comes around, I'm guessing that he'd be pretty high up, like on the board of directors or shareholders or whoever it is at least. But I think that he wouldn't be CEO or close to that, because like, he doesn't seem like that type. He'd have worked his way up because he doesn't seem like the kind of person who likes working for other people, you know, like he likes to be in control. Hence why his targets for his crimes are kids, since they're easier to control. So he'd be a higher up at the company, and not the top because he wouldn't want all that attention, and it would probably have been his idea to try and recreate the success of Poppy with new toys, since his goal of bringing his children, or at least the crying one, back would kind of still need to be there for this character to make sense. Like I was explaining earlier, he kind of need to have that, otherwise it's not William, it's just some guy. Although everything associated with the pizzeria in his story could just be a separate entity within the Poppy Playtime world. As a reasonable extension of William being the one who suggests these experiments, I'm also going to be guessing he's the one conducting them, since if nobody can do it right, you gotta do it yourself when it comes to creating human toys. That sounds weird. This then leads him to create Experiment 1006 that then escapes, like we see during the events of Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. So Afton's voice would be the one that we heard on the tapes. This would probably mean that he's actually dead, because, you know. But no. So instead, since he knew about the risks, he would take those into consideration and would probably have a backup plan if anyone or anything ended up going haywire. Probably something that turned himself into a toy or something similar to give him enhanced strength and stamina, as well as just keep him alive longer. No longer needing to eat and sleep. Thus, Springtrap is born. Well, the Springtrap that would be in this universe. So here, Springtrap wouldn't really be an animatronic suit that Afton got spring locked in, but rather the toy that Afton would have turned himself into. Willingly, might I add. But they'd still remain largely the same, since both have Afton's organic body inside them, yet still enhancing it in some way. So after we knock down Huggy Wuggy, we go to release Poppy, thus ending the first chapter. My idea would be that this is actually what William wanted all along. Or maybe not what he wanted specifically, but something that would draw him out. Knowing that the only true working human toy hybrid is actually out and has been released from its prison would certainly entice the man that just wants to use this technology to bring back his son to come out. So in Chapter 2, if William was in Poppy Playtime, he could reasonably be the villain that we'd be fighting. Experiment 1007, if you will. So he'd come after Poppy so that he could study her and make sure he knows how to bring his son back. Well, maybe. However, he would soon learn that the secret to recreating Poppy was that the person becoming the toy would have to be willing to do so, like Poppy's human and William were. Yeah, because William willingly turned himself into a toy to survive Huggy, he's also one of these perfect human-toy hybrids, meaning that to become a toy, the person would have to be alive, which would send William spiraling and probably turn him into the Springtrap we all know and love, but also hate. For me, mostly hate. He needs to die. Hell, you know what? Just for literary significance, he may even just set fire to the Playtime Co. facility just out of anger. Because honestly, that would make sense given the history of this character in the other franchise. We'd obviously end up surviving this fire though, and Springtrap would later become the main antagonist, while we spent our time fighting off the other experiments that escaped. So we'd have 5 additional chapters, at least after Chapter 2, where we'd fight experiments 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and 1005, assuming that that's the scheme that they'd be going with. But the whole time, we'd wonder why Afton didn't kill us directly, and instead just tried to crash the building down on us, which in reality gave us plenty of time to escape, which would also be a big mystery of the game and the ongoing chapters. He could have had us by the throat and then let go to run away. And we wouldn't know until the final chapter that the reason is because we are either Afton's child or the toy of one of his kids, which is why he released us and gave us a chance to leave, resulting in a final battle between father and son where he realized that it's him or us, meaning he doesn't care if we're his son. He's seen how fragile this form can be and is now in the form of Springtrap known as Scrap Trap. We end the fight by burning down the building with us inside as well, alluding to FNAF 6, killing all of us, or at least it seems that way, because, you know, he always comes back. In the final chapter, we get one final scene of something crawling out of the burnt down ruins of whatever warehouse we were in that stored all the Playtime Co. toys. And as we zoom in, we see bunny ears. And the most recent form of Springtrap, Burn Trap, emerges from the rubble, and the scene cuts to black. Poppy playtime may be over, but Burn Trap's playtime is just beginning. That sounds kind of creepy, considering how he wants to lure kids to the back of pizza joints.